What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Nerd Media, and today I am going to be giving you guys my official MCU film ranking, now updated with Thunderbolts. I do this after every single MCU film just to kind of refresh myself and see where things change, because usually I really change my opinions in between Marvel movies just as I rewatch more and more, like in between the new releases, and it has definitely changed since the last time I did my ranking, especially in like the top 10 area. So we're going to be diving into all of that and more in this video. So if you're new to the channel, I'm Nerd Media. I talk movies, TV shows, and comic books, and today we're ranking the MCU films. So with all that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below what your rankings are. I'd love to see some of your guys' rankings, and we could have a discussion about it in the comments. And just, I love seeing other people's opinions, especially when it comes to rankings on films. So let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and let's dive right into the ranking. Coming in at number 36, or last place, you guys already know, it's Thor Love and Thunder. This is a movie that I was very, very disappointed with. They had such a good setup and such a good story that could have been top 10 MCU, but instead it's at the very bottom because it just feels like a joke the whole time, mainly because it is overall probably one of the biggest disappointments I've had with the MCU to date. Number 35 is going to go to Iron Man 2. This is a movie that used to be my least favorite Marvel movie, but I think it's definitely gone up slightly just because I appreciate the fact that they were able to introduce so many fun new characters that we all love now, like Black Widow, and recasting Don Cheadle as War Machine, which nothing against the original actor, but they still had to manage doing that, introducing Natasha, all of that, so I appreciate it for that. And we also get a lot of the final battle is pretty fun, I will say that. And I definitely think that this movie, while it definitely still is not great, it has some small things that I appreciate about it. Number 34 is going to go to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Looking back on this movie, I think I was like a little bit more open and happy about this movie when it first came out. You guys could probably go back and check my videos I did on it. I was initially very excited. I think I overhyped this movie just a little bit, and it definitely is a big disappointment, not only because of the fact that we aren't going to see Kang ever again, but also it was disappointing when we were still thinking that he was going to be the big bad, because he gets defeated by Ant-Man. I don't think that that made him so unmenacing, and I think that it's a good choice that they decided to get rid of him because of how this movie ruined that character. But I think overall it's just a visual mess, and it's definitely my least favorite of the Ant-Man film. Number 33 is going to go to Captain Marvel. I think the only really big problem I have with this movie is, first of all, I don't like how Nick Fury gets the scratch in his eye. I think that the build up and kind of the tease of that in Winter Soldier is just kind of ruined after that, but I don't think of that as canon. I just decide and forget that ever happens. But I think overall this movie is just boring, and it's probably the most boring MCU film for me, and I just think that keeps it very low because it has almost zero rewatchability just for me personally. Number 32 is going to go to The Incredible Hulk. I actually liked this movie when I first watched it, and I think that it's a very fun film, and it's definitely not great, but I think it's some of the best Hulk stuff that we have seen in the MCU, which is saying a lot considering that we are 36 movies in and this was the second MCU film. But I think that it's definitely not great, and it's definitely not really even good, but it's just fine. It's enjoyable, and it has some really fun action moments, and I mean, maybe not after Brave New World, but I think it still stands as one of the most insignificant Marvel films we've had to date. Obviously, after Brave New World, making a sequel to this film almost like 20 something years later, it doesn't make any sense, but here we are. Number 31, I'm going to give it to Thor: The Dark World. Now, I think the films after Thor: Love and Thunder, I think there are like good things about them. I just don't think that they're utterly bad. Like Thor: The Dark World, I think has some really good moments, especially with Loki and Thor. I think that they are really the big standouts of this film, especially Loki, because I enjoy the first half hour of getting the consequences of Loki and what he did in New York after the events of Avengers. I think that was all done really well, and I just overall enjoy those two on screen together. So that's obviously the biggest highlight of the film for me, but definitely every single film after Thor: Love and Thunder has small things about them that I like, just like this one. Number 30 is going to go to Thor 1. This is another film that I think gets slightly boring. I don't think it's just boring throughout like Captain Marvel is, but it definitely has some dull moments in there where I'm just kind of like there, and I really don't feel like I'm really that into the movie. I think that it's a very fun film, and I like having Loki as the villain, and that definitely sets him up to be a bigger villain later down the line in the future. And I like seeing Thor go down to Earth, and this is our first introduction of Coulson. We get Clint Barton in this movie. There's a lot of fun stuff that I appreciate about this movie, but overall, it's just a little bit of a miss for me, and it's not really one I could see myself rewatching. Number 29 is going to go to Ant-Man and the Wasp. This movie is a movie that I saw in the theaters where I was like, okay, this is good, it's fun, it's enjoyable. But I think upon rewatch, like I've rewatched it maybe once or twice since then, which is not a lot, but it's just not that rewatchable of a movie. It's not the worst Ant-Man film, as you guys obviously can tell, but it's definitely not the best. And I think that this movie, having the Wasp and Ant-Man together, having that duo, I think is the best part of this movie. And I really do enjoy that. And obviously, the character of Ghost, I think I like more, especially after Thunderbolts. So I think that those are probably the main positives. And this was the film in between Infinity War and Endgame, so it was a pretty big movie. And I like how it connects it, but it really just it kind of felt like it was just there, and like it just happened. Like I think that it just doesn't feel like it's that significant anymore. Number 28 is going to go to the Marvels. I actually enjoyed this movie. I think that it was fun, but again, just like Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think that it was just there, and it really didn't really impact my love or like dislike for some of the MCU things. Like it didn't really impact me as much as the rest of the films have, but I think that this movie is fun, it's enjoyable, and it's a good time, but I just think overall it isn't like the best Marvel movie, and I think that it's a good movie, but not the best Marvel movie. And somehow, this movie is going to have one of the most significant post-credit scenes going into Doomsday, so this movie is definitely worth rewatching when we get closer to that. Number 27 is going to go to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This was a movie that I think had a really, really, really bad case of overhyping and leading up with a bunch of cameos, because after No Way Home, they really, really was kind of teasing the fact that there were going to be a lot more cameos in Multiverse of Madness. And sure, you could make the argument that they were, and that they were more like fun in some ways than No Way Home, but I think that the cameos are so badly used. The Illuminati did not work for me at all. I think that it was definitely overhyped, and that is partially the fans' fault and Marvel's fault for that. But I think that overall, this movie is still fun. I like Wanda. I like Doctor Strange. I actually like America Chavez in this film, but it's just not that rewatchable, and it really doesn't hit the same because it feels like an event movie, and usually the Marvel event films don't really have long lasting legs like some of them do, but this one definitely didn't. Number 26 is going to go to Iron Man 3. I rewatch this movie every now and then, and I still find myself enjoying it, but it definitely does have a lot of flaws to it, and it's not the worst of the Iron Man films, but it's definitely not the best. And I think that this movie is a Christmas movie, so I usually rewatch it around like November, December, and I always have a fun time with it. But again, I think that it definitely isn't perfect, especially in the villain aspect. I think that it's probably the weakest of the Iron Man villains. Even though Iron Man 2 is lower than this, I think that that villain still I would choose over Aldrich Killian and Iron Man 3. And obviously, the whole thing that they chose with the Mandarin was not really that great. And I think that overall, not really the best Iron Man movie or just Marvel movie in general, but it's still a fun time. And there are definitely good things about it. Like, I like how they handle Tony's PTSD after Avengers and how he has all the suits and destroys them. I enjoy that, but this movie definitely falls flat mostly with the villain. Now, a lot of people may be shocked by this, but number 25 is going to go to Thor Ragnarok. I think this movie personally is very overrated. It is not the best movie. It is enjoyable, but I think that the enjoyability that I have watching it for the first, second, and maybe even third time definitely starts to go away after you rewatch it a bunch. Like, the jokes don't hit the same. It doesn't really feel as energetic and fun as it did when you first watched it. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of films like this. And I think that this is definitely an overrated movie, but it's not a bad movie by any means. I think it's one of the best of the Thor films. Actually, it's probably the best of the Thor movies. And it has a lot of fun stuff, a lot of great action, a really great character arc for Thor and Loki. And you get a lot of fun stuff in it, but I think it definitely gets slightly worse over rewatch. And that's why I'm probably going to stay away from from rewatching it because I'm afraid it's going to go down more for me, which I don't want to do that because this is probably the best of the Thor movies for me. Number 24 is going to go to Spider-Man Far From Home. I personally think that this is the worst Spider-Man movie. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. It's still fun and it has a lot of great Spider-Man moments. But the way that I describe this movie is it's a good movie and it's a good Marvel movie, but it's not a good Spider-Man movie. Like I don't think it's that great of a representation of that character, and I like the creative choice that they are trying to branch out and bring him to London and places like that. I think that that is cool and I'm all there for it, but and I think that was handled fine. I mean, there's not really a specific way you can handle that, but I do think that this movie definitely falls flat in the areas of Peter just obsessing over the Tony stuff, which I get, that's the character, that's who he was. That's one of the big complaints I have with MCU Spider Man, like a lot of other people. And I just don't really enjoy seeing that kind of stuff. I mean, it's sure it's fine to see Spider Man be miserable, but I think that I think is spent a little bit too much time on, and it kind of feels like a Iron Man film, like underneath all of it, especially with Mysterio being motivated by Tony. And I think that all of that definitely weighs the movie down and makes it feel more like an epilogue to the death of Tony Stark in many ways. But I think that overall, this movie is enjoyable, and I would probably rewatch this, but it is not a great Spider Man movie. Number 23 is going to go to the first Doctor Strange. I think this movie is pretty fun. I think it's pretty good. I haven't rewatched this movie in a long time. I think maybe since I watched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so that was like 3 years ago. But I think that this movie is very fun, and it opened a new door for the MCU at that time, and I think that this still holds up as a pretty decent Marvel movie because we're now kind of entering the halfway point, like we're almost halfway there of this ranking. So I put this right in the middle. It's a fun film. I enjoy it personally, and I think that this is a film where I feel like I could get better over time as I rewatch it more. I'm probably almost due for a rewatch on this film as well. I mean, maybe I'll see if I like it more, maybe I like it less, I like it just the same, but this is a movie I could see getting better on rewatch, and I think that it's a fine movie, but it's not like great or anything special for the MCU. Number 22 is going to go to Captain America Brave New World. This is a movie where the more I've thought about it the past few months since it released, I just kind of have slightly disliked it a little bit more. I think that the movie is fun, it's fine, it's enjoyable to a certain extent, but I definitely think that this is not the way that they should have gone for Sam Wilson's first Captain America film at all, because this is essentially a sequel to The Incredible Hulk almost like 15 years later, which is kind of ridiculous and it makes no sense, and I don't really think that that works for the character and for Sam Wilson. I know you guys have heard probably a lot of people say this, but if they made Falcon and Winter Soldier a film, that would have probably been one of the best Marvel movies, and I think that that would have been a better entry for the first Sam Wilson kind of adventure than this was, because that was a really great story for Sam Wilson. That would have done wonders for him and John Walker and Thunderbolts if that was a film instead of a TV show. I'm not hating on the TV show or the characters in it. I think that the TV show is actually underrated, but this movie would have worked better if it was the Falcon and Winter Soldier as a 2.5 hour film. Number 21 is going to go to Ant-Man. This is a fun heist film that was definitely a genre kind of shift for the MCU in some ways, and I think that it's very fun and it's a fun rewatch, but unfortunately it just kind of is the same quality every time you rewatch it, which I get there's not really much you can expect more from when it comes to that kind of stuff, but it's just not like as you rewatch it, you kind of relive the same feelings and it doesn't really sit well, so it's not like it's the best Marvel movie. It's definitely not as rewatchable as some of the films that came just before this, but it's definitely a better movie than them, and I think that it's definitely fun. But I just don't see myself rewatching this anytime soon. I mean, maybe before Doomsday since Ant-Man's going to be in there, but until then, I don't really think I will. Getting into the top 20, I'm going to give it to Captain America the First Avenger. This is a movie I just rewatched last week in preparation for Thunderbolts, and I did find myself kind of getting bored at like a few different points during the film. I just remember really thinking that this was a underrated movie, which I still think that it is, and I think that's a little bit underappreciated. And I think that this movie definitely has some big standout moments, and it's definitely a very, very fun film, but it definitely has those boring aspects to it. Like, I think definitely in the second act, there is a lot of like scenes where I was just kind of checking out, and that definitely is what's holding it back from being a little bit higher. But I think it's a very fun origin for Steve Rogers, and it is one that we all look back on every now and then when we rewatch Avengers Endgame or something and realize, yeah, this was a decent origin story. And I think that it's very fun that most all of it takes place in the past, and when we go to the present at the end of the film, I think that all of that is really cool, very creative, and I think that that is a big standout of the film as well. But overall, just not that great in some aspects. Now, some people may be shocked by number 19, but I'm going to give it to Eternals. I think this movie is personally not that bad. I think it's fine. I think that I had a lot of fun with it when I watched it in the theaters because I wasn't expecting it to be great at all. But I was pleasantly surprised and I actually enjoyed it throughout the film. So I definitely think that it was very, very fun. And I think that I don't know if it's still going to have that rewatchability to it because I honestly haven't watched it since I first saw it in the theaters. I haven't rewatched it since then, which may not come as a surprise to anybody, but this movie definitely isn't the best, but it also is not as bad as some people make it out to be. I think that it's a very big MCU history lesson, which could be a benefit to the film, which also could not be. I'm kind of in the middle on that, but overall, this is a fun film that I enjoyed. And I don't know if my opinion is going to change if I rewatch this in the future, but again, this movie really isn't significant to the MCU anymore besides the Celestial Island. Number 18 is going to go to Black Widow. This is a movie I just rewatched like 2 days ago before going to see Thunderbolts. This movie was one that I found to be very enjoyable when I saw it, and I think that the story of Natasha that we see go through in this film and how it kind of takes place in the middle of Civil War and Infinity War, I think you could have done some really cool stuff there, and I really did enjoy what they did. I think that overall there are definitely a lot of really bad and weak points to this film, though. Like a lot of people have mentioned, like Taskmaster and just the way that some of the characters are done and handled, and the way that the third act is kind of handled, I think is kind of just okay, I guess. And I think that some of it is just plain fine, but I do have a lot of enjoyment with this film. Yelena is a big highlight of this movie. Red Guardian is also a big highlight. But overall, I just think that this movie should have came out when it was set in the MCU in between Civil War and Infinity War, and I think that would have been more well received. Now, this one, a lot of people are going to be shocked by. Number 17 is going to go to Deadpool and Wolverine. I know I'm due for a rewatch on this movie. I have seen this movie about 6 to 7 times, and I haven't watched it in months, but I am 100% due for a rewatch. I honestly may rewatch it tonight or tomorrow just because I definitely feel like I have gotten bitter towards this film as it's released and as it's like more time has passed, and I feel like that is just unnecessary bitterness, and I really need to rewatch this movie to remember that this movie was made out of pure love out of three best friends, and that is something I always appreciate about this movie specifically, and I think that that is one of the strengths of this movie. And I also think that this movie is what a lot of people picture No Way Home as being just full of cameos and just full of like unnecessary stuff. And I think that although the cameos actually serve roles in this movie, and I think that that is one of the best parts about it, I do think that they kind of get too much at some points. But this movie, you have Hugh Jackman returning and is in you yellow and blue suit. You have a lot of fun moments and a lot of fun returning characters. It's not bad, but I definitely think I'm due for a rewatch. And honestly, when I redo this ranking in July when Fantastic Four comes out, this will probably be higher than it is now. Number 16 is going to go to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This movie is not bad. It's definitely the weakest of the Guardians films, obviously. I think that it's so colorful and so beautiful, and I love that about this movie. And I definitely think the humor in this one hits a little bit less than the other two. And I think that the villain is pretty good, and I really like how this movie focuses about like the fathers and everything like that. Kind of like how the first one focuses about the mother and the third one focuses about the self. I enjoy that, and I think that that is done really well. But I think overall, weakest of the Guardians trilogy, but it's still not a bad movie. Number 15 is going to go to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. This is one of the most emotional MCU films, and I think that is a beautiful tribute to Chadwick Boseman and that character. And I really love Namor in this film, and I really love Shuri's journey that she goes on in this film. But I really do think that it would have been better if they hadn't recasted T'Challa and they just went with the original story. But I do appreciate how this was a full tribute to him, and I think that that was handled beautifully. But I do think that this movie is going to age not poorly, just not great for the MCU in its future. Number 14 is going to go to Shang-Chi. I think that this movie is one of the better origin stories that we've gotten in the multiverse saga, if not maybe the best. It sucks we haven't seen this character since this film, but I'm definitely excited to see him in Doomsday. This was such a well done origin for that character, and I really do think that it has been a big flaw with the MCU that they haven't gone back to other characters, specifically and Shang-Chi. I wish they went back to him, but this movie was a big win for Marvel, I feel like, and a lot of people overlook this movie when they look back on the multiverse saga and all of its flaws and its films and everything. Number 13 is going to go to Spider-Man Homecoming. I think this movie's pretty good. I think that it definitely does do a good job at representing Spider-Man and that character, but I think overall it definitely has a lot of flaws. It has a lot of things that I don't really like how they handle Spider-Man, but I think it has one of the best MCU twists with Vulture being Peter's date's dad. I think that that is great, and I really do think that this movie has a lot of great moments in it, but it definitely doesn't have the best like Spider-Man stuff, and I definitely think that this is not the weakest of the Tom Holland films, but it's definitely not the worst. And it's definitely not the best either, but I think that it's definitely more fun than it is just bad. Number 12 is going to go to Black Panther. This is a movie that I really, really enjoyed. I haven't rewatched this one in a long time since Wakanda Forever. So this movie, as of right now, I may be due for a rewatch on this one as well. But this was a fun movie. It was great. It was a really big impact and really big deal for the MCU. Killmonger is still one of the best MCU villains we've gotten to date. I think that the story of T'Challa and how that gets carried over from Civil War is great, and getting the setup for him being in Infinity War is awesome. And I think overall this film has a lot of really, really strong things for it, but it definitely isn't one of the best. Number 11 is going to go to Avengers Age of Ultron. I love this movie, guys. I'm sorry. This was one of the main movies that got me into the MCU, so I always have that soft spot for it. But, guys, Avengers Age of Ultron, sure, it has flaws, but I think, honestly, Ultron was handled fine in this movie. I just don't like how he was a one and done villain. I think that he should have been way more. I think that this is the only film where we see the Avengers sticking together from the beginning to end. It is a very special film that I really, really enjoyed. Sorry, the background, there's a thunderstorm going on right now, or at least it's starting. That's why I'm trying to get the speed run through this ranking. But Age of Ultron, not a bad movie. I like it. Now, the top 10 that we're about to get into is really, there's really no bad movies in here. I think that they're all pretty good in their own respective areas, but they're also not great in their own areas. So number 10 is going to go to Iron Man 1. This is the one that started the MCU. I believe this movie actually turned a few, like 15 years old yesterday. It's a very great origin movie. It kicks things off. I feel like this movie is the MCU in many ways, and it is how people look at it now, I think, in some respective ways. I think that this movie is very, very good. I think the only flaw I have with this movie is its villain, but overall, it's a very great origin story, and it's the kickoff to the MCU. I know you guys have been wondering, where's Thunderbolts? Well, number 9 is going to Thunderbolts. I was very, very excited for this film when it was coming out. I think that this was going to be the thing that was going to really be the best of Marvel in 2025, honestly. And I don't know if I'm going to stick with that statement. At least overall, I think it probably will be. I think the only real big contender we have at this point is Fantastic Four. But I think this movie did a beautiful and great job at representing mental health and really diving into deeper themes than the MCU is kind of used to. And they used the Void as a perfect representation of that. Sentry was really well done, and having this team come together of people who not a lot of Marvel fans actually really care for or like, and having them all be assembled to become the new Avengers, I think is really, really well done, and it gets me very excited to see them in the future. And it just felt like classic Marvel, and it just really makes me excited for their future, which is what we have been missing from Marvel movies this whole time, is getting excited for the future of the MCU. And that's exactly what this movie did, while sending a beautiful message, and I think that it did that almost perfect. Number 8 is going to go to the first Guardians of the Galaxy. The only flaw that I really have with this movie is that the jokes don't hit the same after rewatching this movie so much, because I love this movie. This used to be my favorite MCU film, but it's definitely gone down just because of that factor, and Ronan is probably my least favorite villain for the Guardians, and I think that he is kind of like poorly developed, but at the same time I do kind of like him. I think this movie is so great in so many different ways. I mean, this movie has a big impact on me personally as well. So this movie obviously means a lot. So I'm very, very, very much biased by this, but I definitely think that there are not perfect things about this movie, but it's overall very, very, very great. Number seven is going to go to Avengers Endgame. This is a movie I actually think I'm going to rewatch tonight just because I'm due for a rewatch on this movie every few months. I love this movie. I may even raise this higher if I, rewatch this tonight. So if you guys want to follow my letterbox, go follow it. I'll be reviewing it later. But this movie is the perfect culmination of everything that we have built up to from Infinity War and the previous things in the Infinity Saga. It is done beautifully. There's so much sacrifice and so many great battles. Although the only flaw that I have with this movie really is I think that the final battle and the way that everything kind of looks with it being all dark and everything is kind of a flaw just for that battle. I think it's a great final battle, but I don't think that it really looks all that great personally if you know what I mean. But overall Avengers Endgame is very, very, very great. I would say it's a perfect conclusion to the Infinity Saga. Number six is going to go to the first Avengers. Guys, this movie is so iconic. It's one of the best comic book movies, I think. It's a really, really awesome just film, and it's really just crazy to think that this movie came out 13 years ago. I think that that's insane. This movie is very great. The villain is awesome. I think that the characters obviously are great. They're all iconic and they're special, and I think that this movie really stands out when you think of the MCU, and I could see this going up higher, but I think that the top five is just perfect for me, all five of those movies. But this movie is great. I don't really think it has many flaws, but I'm sure I could nitpick a few if I really just paid attention to it if I rewatch it. But the next five are just perfection for me. So getting into the top five, I'm going to give it to Captain America Civil War. This is a very, very good movie. I think that this is the Avengers 2.0 in some ways. I think that is a perfect little conflict that really alters the MCU in a lot of different ways because we are still seeing the effects of the Sokovia Accords happening to this day. I think that this movie had to tackle a lot, especially with introducing Black Panther, Spider-Man, and having the divide that really a lot of fans are still talking about to this day as well with Steve and Tony. I mean, I went from Team Cap. I went from Team Iron Man to Team Cap. I went to Team Iron Man again for a little bit, and now I'm still Team Cap again. It's really, really amazing how this movie is still able to manage that argument throughout the years, and I think that that's done really well. And this movie is, I would say, near perfection. I think that I don't know if I would give it that perfect title yet, but I think it definitely is close there. I would give the next four perfection titles, but this movie, I think I need one more rewatch before I say it's perfect, honestly. I think that I'm due for that. Number four is going to go to Spider-Man No Way Home. This actually used to be my number two, but I think that the next two I just rewatched, and they definitely get higher and higher for me. So Spider-Man No Way Home is one of the biggest and most impactful movies of my life, personally. So this movie obviously has to stay in the top five, but I mean, this movie, the only flaws that there really are just visual stuff and some of the choices they have to make with some of the characters. But I give it the benefit of the doubt for all of its flaws because this movie was shot entirely during the pandemic, so there's really no complaining that you can really have with the movie because of the standards of it being filmed during then. I think it's just such a great film, and it definitely does go down slightly just by the little just the slightest bit just because there is no audience reaction. But man, this movie is perfect to me. I think that it is a beautiful Spider-Man story, and it is the best for Tom Holland. I need to see what is going to happen in Brand New Day, and I think the last 15 minutes of this movie for Spider-Man are perfect. It's some of the best Spider-Man content we've ever gotten in those last 15 minutes, and also throughout the film we get some of those great Spider-Man moments as well. Number three, I'm going to give it to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is a movie, again, I actually saw this for the first time 2 years ago today when I went to go see all the Guardians movies in theaters for that marathon, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a perfect conclusion for these characters that means so much to me and a lot of other people. And I think that it is by far the most emotional MCU film. It is just such a gut punch of a movie, and the characters look their best. We get the best MCU suits. We get one of the best, if not the best, MCU villain in the High Evolutionary. Guys, I love that villain so much. And I think that we get a beautiful ending to the story. We get a really gut wrenching Rocket story. And I really hope that we never see these characters again because this ending was too perfect. I don't want to see them again in the MCU. If we're gonna see a Guardian again, I would probably want it to be Star Lord just because he's on Earth now, and I feel like there was a promise to bring him back. But I really just don't want to see Rocket or any of the new Guardians again, just because. Let them be. Let them be. This is a great movie. This is a perfect ending. Don't ruin that, Marvel. But number three goes to Volume 3. Number two is going to go to Avengers Infinity War. I rewatched this movie last week, and that's why it's this high. It used to be like my number five, I think. But after this, I'm just like, it's way too good. It is just the culmination of so many things done in so many great ways. There's like over 70 cast members in this movie, and none of them feel crammed in some ways. It's just the perfect kind of bring everybody together kind of film, and that's why I have so much faith in the Russo brothers for Doomsday, because we have, I think right now, half of the cast that they had in Infinity War for Doomsday. So it gives me a little bit more hope that they are going to be able to pull off this movie. But it's definitely obviously still worrying. But Infinity War is in the argument for one of the best MCU films. There is an argument for the best, and there is an argument for the most well done movie. I mean, it's just such a great film, and I know a lot of people consider it to be the best, and a lot of people consider it to be the best comic book movie, rightfully so, because it has Thanos as a villain. You get the Guardians teaming up with Iron Man, Strange, and Spider Man. It's like such an awesome movie for a Marvel fan. It's just great. But for me, number one has to go to Captain America the Winter Soldier. That story that we get with him and Bucky and Hydra, I think, is some of the best storytelling we've gotten in the MCU. And it's seriously just a really, really great emotional story that we see Steve go on. And it's such a great film with so many great, awesome moments, some of the best fight sequences in the MCU, and some of the best third act stuff you get in the MCU. And one of the best, probably the best reveal in the MCU of Bucky being the Winter Soldier. Obviously, for general audiences, they didn't know that. For comic book readers, you did. But it's such a great movie. It is a perfect kind of like mystery thriller story with Captain America and uncovering the secrets of Hydra. I mean, guys, I want to rewatch this movie again. I probably will soon. It is such a great movie. I can't really see this changing as my favorite MCU movie, at least until fingers crossed Spider-Man Brand New Day is great. But we'll have to wait and see on that. I'm very excited for it, but this is the best MCU movie for me. It's my favorite MCU movie. I think that it has the best storytelling. It has some of the best action. It has just overall some of the best character moments, and it's such a great time to watch for a Marvel fan to rewatch this film. But yeah, guys, I know this was a long video, but that's my MCU film ranking. Let me know in the comments down below what your ranking is, and if you stuck around this long in the video and you're new to the channel, thank you so much. I really appreciate it because there was a thunderstorm that was happening a few minutes ago. I had to stop recording for like 10 minutes, but we're back. I'm going to power through it. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And if you did enjoy this video, like and subscribe and comment down below. And I'm going to be making, I think, 1 or 2 more ranking videos that should be up either today or tomorrow. So stay tuned for those. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.